You were told to find your passion. Someone said it to you, a teacher, a guidance counselor, a commencement speaker, a self-help book, a well-meaning parent. Find your passion and the money will follow. Do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Find your one thing. You believed it. Most people do. And then you spent years, maybe decades, looking for it, searching for the singular calling that would make everything click, waiting for the moment when career and identity and purpose would fuse into one clean narrative you could put on a business card. That moment never came, not because something is wrong with you, because the premise is wrong. Find your passion is not advice. It's a restriction guised as permission, and it's the thing keeping you stuck. Find your passion assumes three things, all of them wrong. First, it assumes passion is something you discover, like it's buried somewhere inside you, fully formed, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Passion is archaeology. Dig deep enough and you'll find it. This sends people on decades-long excavation projects through their own psychology, trying to unearth the one true thing they were meant to do. Most never find it, not because it's hidden too deep, because it doesn't exist in that form. Second, it assumes career should be singular, one path, one calling, one answer to the question, what do you do, that feels complete. This creates what I call career tunnel syndrome, when professional identity collapses into a single dimension and every other capacity you carry becomes invisible. You're a lawyer, you're in hospitality, one label, one track. Everything else is hobby or distraction. Third, and this is the part that nobody says out loud, find your passion assumes the economy needs you to find your passion. It doesn't. The economy needs you to produce. The passion narrative makes production feel voluntary, makes compliance feel like self-expression. You're not grinding, you're following your dream. You're not underpaid, you're doing what you love. The framing absorbs the complaint. This isn't conspiracy, it's structural. A workforce that believes work should feel like passion will tolerate conditions a workforce that believes work is exchange won't. The passion narrative serves employers more than it serves you. Always has. The restriction, not that you haven't found your passion, that you're searching for something that doesn't work the way you were told it does. And the search itself is what's keeping you from building something real. My professional life does not make sense on paper, not in a linear way, not in the way guidance counselors or find your passion books would approve of. I started at the New York Public Library at 14, shelving books. Within 6 months, I was teaching children how to use library computers and teaching grown adults how to build resumes. I was 14 years old, showing adults how to present themselves professionally on paper. By the time I turned 20, I had 6 different positions at that one institution: page, computer instructor, front desk agent, book manufacturer, collections, administrative assistant to the division director. None of them related to each other in any obvious way. No passion connected them. What connected them was that each role appeared. I said yes, and I performed at that level that generated the next opportunity. From there, the trajectory gets less linear, not more. Consulting for the City of New York Housing Authority Youth Chorus, helping disadvantaged youth perform at the Apollo Theater and Radio City Music Hall. I went on to be an administrative assistant to the Director of Actuarial Science at Guardian Life Insurance, managing email flow, reorganizing their actuarial library, increasing the efficiency of communication amongst her direct reports, executive assistant to the CEO of the Food Bank for New York City, overseeing CEO operations, gala relations, and managing the assistants who reported to the CEO. 6 years in luxury hospitality with Denahan, from fitness concierge to front desk management to housekeeping management, helping open a luxury hotel in Soho, New York, enacting training programs, general manager at Regis, running flexible workspace locations across Manhattan, earning Business Center of the Year, 100% occupancy within 3 months of opening the center, perfect satisfaction scores from the customers, then the commercial real estate, residential real estate, operations manager for 120 staff across Manhattan luxury properties. Along the way, a bachelor's cum laude, massage therapy license and certifications in 2 states, personal training certifications, functional range systems specialist, acting training, spoken word at the Nuyorican, a documentary, activist work organizing the world's first global Million Marijuana March in 1998 with Cures Not Wars. I also enrolled in law school, completed the first year, then I withdrew, not because I couldn't handle the work, because I learned something during that year that changed my direction. The legal system isn't designed to help people before they're already in crisis. I wanted to reach people while they still had options, while intervention could create movement instead of just managing damage. The law degree wasn't the calling. Understanding why I was pursuing it was. Library page to law school withdrawal with massage therapy, luxury hotels, commercial real estate, nonprofit galas, youth music programs, spoken word, acting, activism, book manufacturing. In between, no guidance counselor drew this path. No career coach would have recommended it. And every single piece of it is in the methodology I teach now. Nobody tells you what a non-linear career builds because the culture doesn't have language for it. At the library, I learned operations from the ground up, not theory, but physical operations. Binding books with my hands, managing cash, running a division's daily workflow. I was 14 when that lesson started. At Guardian Life, I learned how institutional knowledge flows, who holds it, who gates it, how reorganizing access to it changes everything. And I learned Microsoft Access, database construction, relational data, query building. That skill would matter later in ways I couldn't have predicted. At Denahan, 6 years taught me the organism of luxury hospitality, not one department, but how a hotel breathes, how training programs produce promotions, retention produces culture, how authentic service can fulfill a guest in ways beyond helping them get a good night's sleep. At Regis, I learned that space itself is a product, that occupancy is a function of relationship, not advertising, and I learned how to sell. That would matter in what came next. None of this was passion, all of it was preparation. The book, the methodology, the coaching framework, the diagnostic tools, none of it comes from one career. It comes from every career, the constellation. A linear professional would have learned one industry deeply. I learned the underlying architecture of how organizations work, how people develop, how restriction generates capacity across enough context that the pattern became visible. Pattern recognition requires multiple data points. A single career gives you depth. A constellation gives you pattern. I needed the pattern. A major commercial brokerage offered me a great title and solitary control of retail operations throughout several neighborhoods in Brooklyn. Neighborhoods I believed I could transform by attracting national retail chains to corridors that had been overlooked. The deal was clear. Before I could solicit any business, I had to photograph and catalog every major retail space across all neighborhoods that I was in charge of. Enter the data into their system, master their sales pitch. Only then could I start trying to work leads to make money. I documented 2,300 storefronts, finished 2 months ahead of colleagues who had far fewer storefronts assigned to them, mastered their sales pitch before anyone else in my cohort. They made me wait. When I finally graduated their program, they told me something that changed everything. They didn't have phone numbers for the building owners. The contact information they promised, the entire point of cataloging work, didn't exist. I'd spent months building their database, which they now owned, and I came out of it with nothing to generate leads. If you know how commercial real estate works, you know that finding a building owner's contact can take 2 hours per property. Owners hide behind LLCs and trusts. So my osteoarthritic self hit the streets again. I walked the corridors I'd cataloged, building by building, conversation by conversation. I interviewed retail tenants to learn who their landlords were, and then I built something no one else at the firm had. Using the Microsoft Access skills I developed years earlier at Guardian Life Insurance, I created a database of national retail leasing representatives. Not just names and numbers, the specific square footage each retailer sought, the demographics they targeted, the corridor requirements, every nuance that determined whether a retailer would consider a space. When I spoke to owners, my pitch was different from every other agent in my firm and across the region. You have approximately 3,500 square feet of prime retail space here. Only 7 national chains are looking for this exact configuration in this demographic along this corridor. I know the exact 7 people to call. No other agent has information in their cell phone like this. Sign with me and I'll target them until we close. Within 1 month of street-level work, I built a $1 million pipeline. Built it with no phone numbers provided, no support, no resources except what I created from skills accumulated across the zigzag. And then, my supervisor took over my second largest lead. A property owner who controlled entire blocks in a major retail corridor loved my tenacity. But my supervisor was afraid I wouldn't close. He stepped in, took over communications with my lead. The real estate investor found him condescending. She stopped wanting to do business with me and the firm entirely. They gave me an ultimatum: show up to the office and compile phone numbers they should have provided or get fired. They treated me like an employee the entire time, while I was an independent contractor who should have been able to run my business within normal parameters. I burned through months of life savings just as my wife took the plunge to quit her job and open our family daycare. And I learned, before I quit that role, that they'd forced out others like me before. Same pattern, same result. Years later, my supervisor called to apologize. I think he knew I was exceptional at the work. Here's what that experience taught me, and it's core to the professional pillar. Institutions can fail you. Systems can promise support and deliver obstruction. Supervisors can sabotage what they don't understand. And when that happens, you have 2 choices: accept the restriction as the final word, or build something they didn't give you permission to build. I gave myself permission to quit. The database I created didn't come from their training, it came from the constellation. Guardian Life, Regis, a childhood of surviving Williamsburg, skills that had nothing to do with real estate until suddenly they had everything to do with real estate. The institution failed me. The constellation saved me. The professional pillar carries its own curse. You will spend the majority of your waking life doing something someone else defines, in conditions someone else sets, for compensation someone else determines, under evaluation criteria someone else designed. That's not cynicism. That's the structural reality of employment for most of human history. The arrangement varies: feudal lord, factory owner, corporate board, gig platform algorithm, but the architecture persists. Your labor in exchange for permission to continue living. Into this structural reality, culture inserts "find your passion." The cruelty of that framing becomes clear when you see it against the structure. You're inside a system designed to extract your productive capacity. The system tells you to find the version of that extraction that feels like self-expression. If you find it, you produce more and complain less. If you don't, the system tells you the failure is yours. The professional curse isn't that work is hard. Work is exchange. Exchange is neutral. The curse is the mythology layered on top of the exchange. The insistence that this exchange should feel transcendent and that something is wrong with you if it doesn't. Most people aren't stuck because they lack talent or drive. They're stuck because they're measuring their career against a standard that was never theirs, a standard designed to make them more productive inside someone else's structure, not to help them build their own. But some people did find their passion and it worked. Some did. Survivorship bias is powerful. You hear from the people from whom the passion narrative worked. You don't hear from the millions who searched, didn't find, and concluded something was wrong with them. The narrative survives because it tells the success stories. The failures are silent. But you clearly have passion for what you do now. I do, but I didn't find it. I assembled it. From library operations, luxury hospitality, spas, real estate negotiations, nonprofit fundraising, massage therapy, spoken word, acting, and 1 year of law school I chose to leave. The passion came after the constellation formed, not before. Passion followed mastery, not the other way around. I didn't love the synovial space methodology and then build it. I built something from every professional experience I ever had, and the act of building produced the love. But people should enjoy their work. Enjoyment and passion are different things. Enjoyment is present tense. It happens inside the work. Passion is narrative. It's a story about the work. You can enjoy Tuesday's work without it being your singular calling. The pressure to have a passion creates shame around work that is satisfying but not transcendent. Most good work is satisfying but not transcendent. That's enough. But what about people who knew what they wanted since childhood? The kid who loved computers in 1990 looks like a visionary now. The kid who loved puppetry in 1990 doesn't have the same narrative. Both had equal passion, one had a market. Childhood clarity isn't proof that the model passion works. It's proof that some passions have economic infrastructure and some don't. The model only appears to work when the passion and the market happen to overlap. This feels privileged. Some people just need a job, which is exactly why the passion narrative is harmful. Telling someone who needs income to survive that they should hold out for passion is cruel. The professional pillar isn't about finding dream work, it's about honest engagement with actual professional reality, including economic reality. For a lot of people, that means the job you have right now is building something you can't see yet. That's not settling, that's accumulation. 8 billion people on this planet, the vast majority will work for decades. And the dominant cultural narrative about that work is that the decade should be spent pursuing a singular passion. The people who accept this narrative and don't find the passion feel broken. The people who reject it feel like they're settling. Neither conclusion is accurate. What's actually happening for most professionals is something the passion narrative has no language for: accumulation. You're accumulating skills, relationships, knowledge, failures, recoveries, capacities across roles and industries that don't look related on a resume but are building something underneath. I call this the multi-movement principle. Society tells you to find your one thing. Your greatest capacity often comes from developing multiple centers of movement. Career tunnel syndrome, when professional identity collapses into a single dimension, is the restriction. Multi-movement is the space that opens when you stop trying to collapse everything into one label. The passion narrative is the professional version of the installed narratives I talked about in the mental pillar episode. It was installed by culture, graduation speeches, career days, motivational posts, before you had enough professional experience to test whether it was true. By the time you worked long enough to realize the passion model doesn't match your experience, you're already measuring yourself against it. Every episode in this series arrives at the same churn. The restriction, once honestly engaged, produces something the restriction never intended. Nobody gave me a professional track. Every transition was a response to restriction, a role ending, an opportunity appearing in an unexpected place, a need for income intersecting with an available position. An institution failed to deliver what it promised. The commercial real estate experience could have been a dead end. The firm reneged on their commitment. My supervisor sabotaged my biggest opportunity. But the skills I'd accumulated across the zigzag, database construction from Guardian Life, sales methodology from Regis, operational thinking from Denahan, allowed me to build something they never gave me permission to build. At 594 Driggs Avenue in pre-gentrified Williamsburg, nobody was handing out linear career trajectories. The options were work what's available, learn what you can from each place, and keep moving. That became the methodology. The synovial space methodology didn't emerge despite the zigzag career. It emerged from it. The constellation of experiences is the raw material. Remove any single piece, the library, the hotel openings, the insurance company, the spas, the real estate database I built when the firm failed me, and the methodology has a gap. I didn't find my passion. I built something that only a career like mine could build. The restriction, no linear path, no single track, no obvious narrative, was the catalyst for what I do now, not the obstacle to it. Not anti-ambition, not anti-career, not telling you to stop caring about what you do for a living, anti-shame about a professional path that doesn't look like the ones they put on commencement stages. The professional pillar is honest engagement with how your career actually works, not how culture says it should work. Knowing the difference between genuine professional restrictions, market conditions, geographic limitations, economic realities, systemic barriers you didn't create, institutions that failed to deliver what they promised, and perceived professional restrictions, the belief that your career is broken because it doesn't match a narrative someone else wrote. Genuine restrictions require strategy and adaptation. Perceived restrictions dissolve when you stop believing them. If your professional path looks like a zigzag, consider that the zigzag might be building something a straight line can't. If you've changed industries and roles more than you like to admit, consider that the constellation of experience is raw material, not scattered wreckage. If an institution failed you, consider what skills you accumulated before that failure that might now be combinable in ways nobody taught you. I'm not a career coach. I'm not a selling framework that promises to help you find your one thing. I'm the person with 15 career chapters who built a methodology from the fact that none of them followed the last. Accountability partner, standing next to you while you stop measuring your career against someone else's story and start auditing what your actual professional history has built. What has your zigzag been building? That's not a rhetorical question. It's where the real work starts. 1 pillar of 8, your professional life. How you work, what you build, what you tolerate, what you refuse. Professional restriction doesn't stay in the office. It shapes your financial decisions because income is attached to career. It affects your relationships because time and energy are finite and work consumes both. It distorts your sense of purpose because culture fused career and meaning so tightly most people can't separate them. The book, Synovial Space, A Guide to Dynamic Living, maps all 8 dimensions and shows how creating movement in one creates ripple effects across the rest. The free diagnostic at h2pcollective.com maps where you actually are across all 8 pillars. It takes 15 minutes. There's no sales pitch. presents honest data. You were told to find your passion. That's not the end of the conversation. It's where the real conversation begins. This has been Pillar Work. I'm Raphael St. James.